in the book, eventually my wife did start traveling with me.
Yeah.
And she loved Monte Carlo. That was
Yeah.
great. Those things were. But she went around the world, and we had this experience in Japan. And I don't know if you've read yet, but the Japanese are great people. But they thought that we would enjoy a show, and the show had striptease girls. And my wife thought this is what we went through all the time. That was the first time I'd ever
Yeah.
been invited to a show.
She was like, "You forgot to take this part out of the thing."
Yeah. And I'm like, this doesn't happen. It's so by some fate, it did happen, and she wasn't well pleased at all. But I think she forgave me, not that I was the instigator of it at all. I mean, the worst thing that the Japanese, when after the show, they brought the girls to our table.
And you're like, guys, welcome to another episode of Jibber with Jibber. Today, I am joined by a living legend. I'm a bit kind of. It's not often that you get to sit with somebody who literally had a hand in doing something that changed the world. It's incredible. Let me introduce Mr. Joe Foster.
Oh, AJ, thank you very much. Changed the world. Maybe the sporting world and certainly the sports football world. We did change it quite a bit. It was really good and a nice journey. Very pleasant, exciting, sometimes a bit rough, but thank you. Yes, legend. I don't know. We'll see.
Definitely a legend. Definitely a legend. It's because not many people can say that they did something in their life that impacted the four corners of the world.
It all depends if he's still alive. I think a few people did. But
a few people did, but yeah, exactly.
They're probably not still alive.
The numbers,
yeah.
If you take the comparison of the percentages that do and the people that don't.
Well, we got very lucky. And, I think, like you say, becoming a legend, I don't know. We got very lucky. And a lot of people say, well, you've got to work hard and do a lot, and the harder you work, the luckier you get. And I do agree, but I do look back on many things and think, had that not happened, you bump into something, and that's luck. I bumped into like Paul Fireman, and that was luck. Okay, I've been going there for 11 years, but
you say that it was luck, but I feel like luck is also, like you said, putting yourself in situations long enough that luck actually kind of finds you. Luck sees the person and goes, okay, it's his time now. He didn't leave. He's been coming for a while, so I think it's time I kind of make these two people meet.
Right place, right time.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I mean, your grandfather, the name Foster, when it comes to, running shoes and that, it's incredible how far back the history goes.
Indeed it goes. I mean, 1895. The name Foster, well, if I think about it, had Reebok not become very successful, that wonderful company, my grandfather's company, which was so innovative in this time, would have been lost in history. But fortunately, we got it right. We got lucky, and Reebok became well known. And so I'm able to tell his story as well as my story. And yes, and his story is a very good one. And when I look back, I think the time in 1895, what he had, the facilities, the opportunities, social media, what was that? I don't think either of those words were even known.
No,
in those
we
days.
just had media, if that,
right.
at that time,
But he was an influencer, fantastic influencer. He was only 15 when he made his first pair of running shoes.
15?
15, yes.
Wow.
And he's put spikes. But he wanted to be a cobbler. His father was a confectioner, but his grandfather was a cobbler. And he used to go to his grandfather's place in Nottingham, which was a good 60 miles away from Bolton. But trains were running then, so he went on the train. And his grandfather, of course, not only repaired street shoes, but cricket boots.
Okay.
And we're pretty sure that my grandfather said, why have they got spikes in the bottom of these cricket boots? To give them grip. And I think that's what sort of struck a chord in his mind, because he was a member of his local Harriers. It was a Bolton Primrose Harriers. And he was a member, pretty average, halfway up the field or down the field, whichever way you want, till he was running. And he thought, if I put spikes in the bottom of my shoes, that'll give me better grip and maybe I'll do better. And he did. He really did. He came a very unlikely second, and I think that annoyed a lot of his fellow athletes. But that was the start of a business.
It's incredible to imagine, like, when he first walked on and then people saw, what's that sticking out of your shoe? Because obviously, you know, in those days, like you said, he was an influencer, an innovator, and essentially an inventor.
Yes.
At 15. And nobody else in the running community had thought of that.
Well, right. So, you know, they looked at him and it was a choice between are you sort of a cheat, or are we all going to have a pair of those shoes?
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, exactly. And then when he first started making them, because obviously cobbling is not something that everyone can do.
No.
So he had that experience. I mean, my best friend today is a cobbler, a friend of mine who we grew up. We're literally brothers. He's in the UK, and he's kind of followed his father, what his father was doing outside the train station. You know, you have those little huts that cut keys and cobble and stuff like that.
Right, yes.
And he's doing that. And then even now, when you meet him, when he tells people I'm a cobbler, some people are like, hold on, he's like a hippie. He's got long hair down to there. You know, you'd picture him surfing on the beach, something. And it's not like something that someone would say now in these days, I'm a cobbler. It's quite strange to hear.
Yeah, shoe repairer maybe.
Yeah.
But cobbler is, that's the original word for repairing shoes.
So through his grandfather, obviously, he learnt how to do that stuff. Because shoes have changed immensely since then.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how did he do it by himself? Did he go to his grandfather and say, hey, can you show me how to do this and let me get some spikes and put it in? Or how did that work? Because I want to get kind of the idea of what made him think, I need to put spikes in these shoes.
I'm pretty sure it was very close to his grandfather, and I'm pretty close when he got the idea. Look, I do running. How can I put spikes in the bottom? Because he didn't just look at it and then go home and invent it. No, he had to pick up the spikes from somewhere. And I would imagine his grandfather said, "Oh yeah, okay, you do this," and he had to learn how to make a shoe as against repair a shoe.
Yeah.
Repairing a shoe was just sort of taking the old worn sole off and putting a new one on and finishing it off, trimming it so it looked new again. But that's not making a shoe. So he had to learn how to not only buy leather, but the right leather, then cut it. And he had to make a pattern. He had to organize a last. And, a cobbler's last is just something you just put the shoe on.
Yeah.
But a shoemaker's last has to take the shape of the shoe and create that shape. And, of course, he also had to learn how to hand sew a shoe. And you wouldn't know what a turn shoe is.
Yeah. You got to turn it back the other way around, inside out, right?
You make it inside out.
Yeah.
And
it's because of my friend the cobbler. That's
your
why.
Friend the cobbler. Oh, there you go. You got the inside information already. Yeah. So he had to learn how to make a turn shoe.
Yeah, reverse engineer
out, and then turn it around, and then stitch on an outer sole, a piece that had the spikes in. They used to call it the clump. And they used to sew this clump on. So, and that usually, in those early days, again, it was hand sewn. Later it became machine sewn. But the turn shoe, of course, is a hand sewn shoe. So we had to learn how to do that. And I'm sure he sort of went through a few difficult stages, because in those days, I think you had to sort of develop a craft as against being taught it. And I don't think, maybe his grandfather knew a bit about it, but I would suspect that my grandfather actually thought, well, I need to start making a shoe, so I'll get a piece of leather and then I'll test it. And, now if you want to make a shoe to fit a last, you start off by covering it in paper. And then you split that paper so you get a nice flat pattern, and you can cut around it. Maybe he developed that.
Wow.
And that's a skill that, again, I think it probably originated. I said, shoemaking in where we were, around Bolton, we were probably something like 30 miles away from what became a shoemaking area, the Rossendale Valley. But I think in his day, there was no such thing as Rossendale Valley. So he was fairly original, and that's why I admire what he must have done, what he must have gone through, and being quite inventive on making his running shoes.
Well, and how far from the 15-year-old to then supplying, because obviously the Foster running spike became the shoe of the Olympics. It became, a gold medal winning shoe, and everybody wanted to run in those, and that was it. So from 15 to when did he develop it where it was?
Well, I'm pretty sure that his first attempts were a bit rough and a bit sort of hit and miss, maybe, he probably just honed his skills by the year 1900, 5 years after he made his first shoe. He opened his business. So he had a business which was Jedward Foster athletic shoes. So we had a business then, and you think, well, how do you get to people? Well, they used to advertise, because being in the north of England, there weren't so many athletes around. Well, quite a lot. Near Manchester, not bad. But I mean, it was shortly after my grandfather started that a guy called, I think it was a bit after, Sandy Law, GT Law. And GT Law made Roger Bannister's shoes when he did the 4-minute mile. But you look at them, and unless you know a bit about shoemaking, you could hardly tell the difference. So who copied who? Well, I'm sure that GT Law probably copied Foster, but maybe grandfather copied something that GT Law did. But the shoes developed, and they were made of calfskin, which now is prohibitive. You could buy calfskin; that was too expensive to make shoes. But in those days, calfskin, and we had Bolton leathers, which is probably going then in Bolton, near Bolton. So we probably bought his leathers locally, and it would take some time, but he did. He did obviously hone that skill down. So people, and I say people wore his shoes. I think it's 1904 when Alf Shrub broke 3 world records in one race. That race was a race over 1 hour. How far could you run in 1 hour? And he not only sort of ran the farthest in 1 hour, but he also broke 3 world records doing it.
Wow!
This was in 1904 in Ibrox Park in Glasgow. So it's quite a while ago. And after that, of course, I think it was 1908, he got his first gold medals, which is brilliant. And that was in the London Olympics in 1908. And we have a letterhead from the 1920s, because the second decade of the 20th century, World War One, and they were repairing armour boots. So it was repairing armour boots. And my father used to tell me, because by that time, Joe, my grandfather, had 2 sons, and the company from Jedward Foster became Jedward Foster and Sons.
Okay.
He was one of the sons, and we're talking about 1914. My father was born in 1906, so he was 8 at the time. He used to have to scrub all the mud off the boots which had come back from Flanders, and he said it was more red than it was brown because of all the, whether he was being dramatic or not. No, probably a bit of drama, isn't there? Yes. I think we all sort of tend to make things a bit more colourful.
Yeah.
And so, okay, the business continued, but not making running shoes until, of course, 1918. Then it took a while for everybody to get back. So I think it was the 1920s, and that was my grandfather Joe's belle epoque, that decade. I say we have this letterhead, and this letterhead obviously printed in the 1920s, and he's got the name of about 96 football clubs down the side, football and rugby clubs. So you could hardly mention a British football club. Man United, Man City, Arsenal, Chelsea, they're all in there. Glasgow Rangers, Hibernian.
Wow.
He used to supply them with training shoes. It's a different story, but why were Foster's not the biggest football boot manufacturers?
Because that's you say it's a different story, but this is going to be the first 6-hour podcast that I've done, so we've got time for as many stories. But because obviously we all know that Adidas kind of took over the market with football.
They did, yes.
You're right. Why did they not capitalize on the fact that you have a historical document there that shows that you were
supplying all these football clubs? But when I'm referring to this letterhead, in the bottom left-hand corner, it's suppliers to the Olympics, to all the competitors in the Olympics in 1920 in Antwerp.
Wow.
That was a big thing. However, we must remember that at that time, the Olympics was just track and field.
Yeah.
We didn't have...
There weren't all the other sports and stuff like that.
No, we have thousands of sports now. But so he supplied all the athletes, which is fantastic still. And of course, he also supplied, I don't know if you've heard of Chariots of Fire. Chariots
Yeah,
of Fire.
of course. Great movie.
It's three athletes are immortalised, and this is where I usually forget the names, of course. But one was Lloyd Burley, the other was
Abraham. Was it Abraham?
yes, it was Abraham, Eric Liddell, and Abrams, Harold Abrams. Harold Abrams actually became, I think he became the chairman of the 3As eventually. But they all won gold medals and they were immortalised in Chariots of Fire.
Yeah.
So, excuse me. So we can see that he was really impressive in the 1920s. Unfortunately, my grandfather died early, 1933. He was only 53.
Oh.
And I wasn't born until 1935. But I happened to be born on his birthday, 15 months after he died. So my grandmother was absolutely, he's brought his name with him.
He found his way back.
Something like that, yeah. So I became Joe Foster. It's good for the story, isn't it? You know, it adds a little bit of, think about that. Let's think about that. So I became Joe Foster. And of course, we're talking now 1935. In 4 years, we had World War II.
Wow, yeah, and that kind of stalled the world, didn't it?
It stole the world, yes. And J.W. Foster's once again became repairers of football boots. They also made sandals, and that was quite a good, lucrative business for them. They had a bit of leather, so they were able to make sandals. And I think sandals escaped, well, a lot of the problems in what you could and you couldn't make. And since they didn't take an awful lot of leather, I think it was okay.
Yeah.
But you did have to pay coupons, because during the war, everything was on coupons.
Yeah, rations.
Food and rations. And it became, I could say, not so much income, but you could exchange them for different things.
Yeah.
So I think they would have called it the black market in those days. But, I think if you get into the black market, it was a way of adding a few nice things to your lifestyle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Funnily enough, though, Jedward Foster doing very nice. They had cars from a very sort of, even when grandfather was alive, when he died in 1933, they had cars. And the car they had during the war was a Renault.
Wow.
We used to call it a Renault because
of course.
That's how it's spelled.
It's English,
that Renault. And unfortunately, of course, we're thinking about cars. They were not that reliable in those days. And I think they called it the crown wheel and pinion. That had gone. And that went very early on in the war. And it was impossible to get it repaired. So it's stuck in the garage with a problem because it was a French car.
Yeah.
And they couldn't get anything to repair it until after the war. But during the war, yes, we were kids running around the streets, no lights on. Oh, we're a bit wicked because we did all sorts of silly things, as you do when you're kids, Yeah. So what's a war? I mean, okay, it is in the book where we could actually, Bolton was slightly elevated from Manchester.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of things used to go on in Manchester and bombing the docks there. So we could see, the air raid sirens used to go off, and we used to watch upstairs, and you'd see the skyline sort of, And then, of course, we got the all clear, but we were that sort of 15, 20 miles away, so we didn't feel we were in danger.
Yeah.
Even though sort of bombs did drop. In fact, one dropped near the Foster's factory. Somebody obviously missed wherever they were going, because Foster's factory wasn't a great deal of...
it wasn't a target for them.
But it did blow in the front window. And I remember going down there, Father took us down there. We didn't go through the door, we actually climbed in through the front window because there was nothing left. It was a big glass plate window. Yeah. There was nothing left. And we did find a piece of shrapnel. Obviously, it was about that big.
Yeah.
Obviously, that piece was the one that shattered the window. And we kept it for years and years and years, but I don't know what happened to it. When you move about, and we left home, so what happened to that? I don't know. But it was quite a trophy at the time.
Yeah.
So
imagine you still had it now.
It would be amazing, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Well, that's why the bombs couldn't catch you. You guys all had spikes on in Bolton, so you're running around too much. They were like, these targets are way too difficult. Let's go to Manchester. They're all just sitting down.
That's right.
That's crazy. But one thing, when I look at a picture of the old spikes, they almost look like golf shoes. I don't know if it was the time. They're very gentlemanly. If you look at the way and the patterns and the leather that's used. If I saw that without spikes now, I would think, you know, that could pass for a shoe or a dancing shoe or a ballroom. You know, it's the spikes that kind of, you're like, okay,
Yeah. I think there's a lot of cross-fertilization between cricket, golf, and running. The running shoe, of course, had no heel. It was totally flat. So you wouldn't get very far playing golf in the and it was only very, very sort of small, narrow at the back. But I think most people sort of look at it and think it's like a ballet shoe, because it was very much like a ballet shoe. And ballet shoes, again, a turn shoe. They make it inside out, and then they put the thing in the toe that makes it stiff. So they look a lot like that, yeah. But they're very light. Just
I suppose they had to
light.
be, right?
That's right.
As light as possible for runners.
And I think that's probably one of the reasons why Foster didn't really get into football boots. Football training shoes, yes, but boots.
Yeah, because you don't want anybody like spiking you on your foot when they're running past you.
No, you don't. But I think the boots in the early days when my grandfather was alive, and even when I was a youngster, they were made out of very heavy kip leather, which was greasy, and that was a different type of manufacture. Even though Adidas actually brought in lightweight leather shoes, which Foster's could have made easily. But maybe there's a little gap there that...
they missed.
Yeah, but I think if grandfather had been alive, I think he would have seen it.
Yeah.
And he would have thought, this is it.
Being the entrepreneur and had the vision that he had,
That's
obviously
right.
being a 15-year-old doing that. And I suppose also the balls were very different then, you know, very heavy leather balls.
The balls, the pitch.
So you needed that kind of heavy leather boot, otherwise it wouldn't have been fun to play 90 minutes with that ball.
You just need to think of the pitches in those days. I mean, you know, always if you see photographs, around the goal mouth, it was just mud.
Yeah.
And around the centre,
it was mud as well,
spot was mud as well. So nowadays you don't see any mud at all. You know, no such thing. They resurface it.
Probably every match, when
That's
they're doing
right. But as I said, they had all this mud. So yes, and the ball was made of leather. It wasn't coated with anything.
I think it was a pig's intestine or something strange, like pig's bladder.
That was the bladder inside.
Inside, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it had the heavy leather.
The heavy
on top,
leather was on the outside, but that was like any leather. It would just absorb moisture.
Yeah, especially imagine it rains during the game.
It always rained during the game,
especially in the UK.
That's right. Always rain. Yeah, very rarely not. And of course, I think a lot of old footballers used to complain about dementia and things because they used to head that ball.
They must have CTE for sure.
Yeah,
I mean, they didn't. Obviously, in those days, no one was thinking about CTE or any of those kind of issues heading the ball. But
that's right.
It's great. So where do we go from being part of the the Joe Foster and Sons company to we're going to start our own company?
Well, that happened because after the war, I was 10. I went. Education started back again then because we didn't get much education during the war, a bit. But after my education started and I eventually went to college, I left college at 17 and joined the Foster company. And really, you know, when you're growing up and you're kids, you're not really interested in what your father does. It's just, he just does this. And, you know, more interested in, I'm going to say Boy Scouts, but probably Girl Guides as well.
I was a Cub Scout, so I know exactly where you're coming from.
Yes. So I was there for a year. And at 18 we had to do national service.
Yes.
You could get deferred. My brother, he was 2 years older than me, and he'd been deferred. And it so happened, his deferment was up, and father decided, no, we both can go. So we both went at the same time. I'm 18, and this is 1953.
Where were you stationed?
And I was stationed at a place called Bordsea, which is near Felixstowe. Felixstowe used to be the Air Sea Rescue, and now it's a port. It's a big port in the UK, the Felixstowe. So I was stationed in the UK. Jeff was in Germany.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yes. And what was he seeing? Yeah, he's seeing Adidas, he's seeing Puma, and he's seeing what they're doing with running shoes. So you can imagine, 2 years later, we come back, you know, and we changed. We are changed people. You know, you have to look after yourself in the forces. Mother's not there. She's not making dinner. She's not changing the bed, and she's not washing your clothes. So you got to look after yourself. And in fact, I spent only probably 1 year doing what I was on, which was radar. And the second year, because somebody, by good fortune, we won the cup playing badminton. I just happened to arrive at Board 2 and become part of the team and improve the team. Enough for us to, it wasn't the big cup, it was the shield.
Yeah.
And the teams that entered the shield were the ones that got knocked out of the cup in the first round.
Yeah, yeah.
So everybody,
So we've got to do something with them.
yeah, everybody else went for the shield. But with my joining the company, getting into Board, saying we had a team then and we won the shield, which was lucky for me because we had some top brass watching this. It was at Wimbledon, in fact, where we played.
Wow.
Inside at Wimbledon, and I was seen by a couple of guys who actually organised badminton for the RAF, and so I was sort of taken away to play badminton for 12 months.
Wow. Easiest service term that you could have asked for.
So yeah, but they're really keen on sport.
Yeah.
And so it was quite easy for me. It was great. I was hardly ever back on the camp and whatever.
Yeah.
I was away there playing badminton and enjoying life. But anyway, it all came to an end.
Yeah.
And although I was interviewed, but I think everybody got interviewed. Like, would you like to stay on after doing national service?
You always get the chance.
Yeah. That. And I thought, well, if I could be an officer, oh yes, we'll send you for officer training. Fighter pilot? Oh, well, maybe. I thought, well, maybe it's too... No,
It's a big shout for you're a badminton player, okay? It's a bit of a wild dream you have there, but
could I be a fighter pilot? No. We used to, when I was doing On the Radar, we used to actually control the fighters.
yeah, because you
We
can
used
see
to go up
everything.
and do practice interceptions over the North Sea, which was rather interesting.
Some mocks.
Yeah, that's it. We had the Americans as well, so you
Yeah.
take Americans up, and that was a very interesting time. But no, it was back to Bolton, back to the factory. And what did Jeff and I see? Oh, we saw a failing company.
Wow.
They were still making the same shoes they made in the 1930s, 40s. Here we are now when it's 55, and
No innovation. Or
Adidas is coming in. They're showing a different product, and my father and uncle who were now running the company. Not only couldn't they see it, they were a bit like Adi Dassler and Rudy Dassler.
Rudy,
Yeah. Rudy left because they couldn't get on together.
Yeah.
And he set up Puma. The Fosters kept fighting.
Right. What is it with brother shoemakers that, I mean, I guess you guys broke the mold there where they keep fighting each other.
Yeah, but there were 5 years difference in age. And my uncle, he was still making the traditional hand sewn. Father had gone on to machine sewn. But, they needed to work together.
This is from the same factory, so they kind of split but stayed in the same place.
Yeah, well, it was a terrace row, really.
Yeah.
My grandfather bought number 57, and he did very nice. So we bought number 59, and number 59 was a pub. So it was an old pub that he bought, the Horse and Vulcan, I think it was called. And he converted that. Only a small factory. And to really be competitive with, say, Adidas, my grandfather, or certainly his sons, would have needed to have moved into some bigger premises, bought different machinery, learned different skills. But they didn't. They seemed to be content. And I don't know, they experienced 2 world wars. Whether the idea of building a business just never came to them, or they were just a bit too old for that.
Yeah.
But they were not that old. I mean, father had been in his late 50s. That's all. But I guess late 50s to make a start. I mean, I retired at 55, so I guess his father's in his 50s thinking, well, no.
I'm going to start all again and start researching and doing all that stuff.
That's right. And Jeff and I, we came back from doing national service, and we're seeing this, and we're saying to the father, look, you two have got to work together. We need change. We've got to start moving forward. And my father could say, look, when Bill's gone, my uncle, and I'm gone, this will be yours. I say, look, Dad, firstly, we don't want you to go. That was not part of the plan. We don't want you to go. Secondly, there'll be no business.
Yeah.
That will have gone before we get that chance to do anything. And, we suggested, well, why don't you come with us, and Jeff and myself and you, and we'll say, no, just have to wait, when we're gone. So it shouldn't have been a surprise on that Friday night when I walked into the office and said, Dad, Jeff and I are leaving. It's in the book if you've read the book. And he didn't take any notice really at first. And then, after I told him 2 or 3 times, and he'd asked the question, why? I said, look, you know why. He picked up the letter opener and he's coming to me and I'm thinking, oh,
Here we go.
now what? And he just turned it round and gave it to me. He said, all right, stab me now.
Oh, wow.
And I'm saying, look, Dad, you know, this is not personal in that way. This is, you know, we need to do something. We need to make something of this business, and we can't do it here because you won't with us. So that was the time. Jeff and I left. I got the blame because my father said I'd led him into doing this, and I said no. But Jeff still lived at home with parents. I just got married and left home and bought a small bundle. So I got sort of the blame, which is okay, fair enough. And I did most of the talking, which was probably probably the reason why.
Well, when you were growing up, I bet that he saw you being the most mischievous out of them. He's always getting him into trouble. So this time it's just the same.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, it was always sort of me. Okay. So we left and we set up our own company just down the road, Mercury Sports Footwear.
Nice. I know the name Mercury.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we set up as Mercury Sports Footwear.
And that was what you planned for it to stay as, right?
We had no thoughts of any changes. I think really where we were at that point was we got to start something. Not where is it going to go. We got to change. We got to get away from Foster's, which is going down, and we got to sort of pick up the reins, maybe where our grandfather left off. And
Why Mercury? If you don't mind me asking. Is that something you just thought of, or was is there a story behind that?
Mercury, the logo we had is a winged messenger.
Okay.
So that sort of seemed to fit with athletics and running. You know, the torch, the running, the winged messenger, Mercury. So that seemed to fit quite nicely to a running company.
Yeah.
Even though we didn't start as running, we started off as cycling, and we were just being nice. You know, we thought, well, Foster's really their major business is running, athletics, and although we would eventually go into athletics, we didn't want to compete just like that. And you know, we could have said we're also JW Foster because that was one of the problems with my grandfather was Joseph William and I became Joseph William. He had 2 sons, John William. He was called Billy. Everybody called him Billy, and my father James William, called Jim, and my brother, he was Jeffrey William, and a younger brother who unfortunately has also died was John William. So we were JWs all the way
everywhere.
through.
Yeah.
So JW Foster.
It was an easy change to just take over and carry on.
So yeah, could we become JW Foster? No, we couldn't become JW Foster, and so we had to think of a name. But we're only 18 months into being Mercury Sports Footwear, and we had an accountant. He was fortunately just across the road, and the accountant said, "Look, you better register your name because you know you're doing quite nicely." And I said, "Why?" Because you know, naive. You know, what do you do? Yeah, we're only 25, 26. In fact, I was 23 at the time. My brother's 25. And I said, why? He said, well, if somebody thinks that, that Mercury product seems okay, we'll make some Mercury shoes. And, you know, really, they're sort of using your name. And if they do that, you can't stop them because you're not registered. Or you could probably stop them, but it costs you a lot of money because you'll be court case and everything. Oh, right. So how do we do that? So he said, well, okay, you go and see a patent agent and he will check it with the register and, you know, then do the registrations for you. So I did. I went to Manchester, saw the patent agent, told him what we were doing, and he took the name and everything. A week later, he came back and said, I'm sorry, guys. Your name, my name, Mercury, is pre-registered. Yes, right. Oh, it's Lotus and Delta. Lotus and Delta were part of the British Shoe Corporation. All right. And they said, but they'll offer it to you. They're not using it. And so you can have it for £1,000.
Wow, which was a lot of money back then. we'd
set up a whole factory for £250.
Wow.
With all our machinery, with everything. No, I think he borrowed about £200 from the bank. £1,000 out of sight. Totally out of sight. So A patent agent said I'd gone to the patent in his office. He said, well, you have to bring me, you have to change your name, but don't give me one. Bring me 10. 10? And he pointed through the window. It was a nice day in May. He pointed through the window to Kodak. And I said, okay, what's with Kodak? I said, that's their name. They made it up. They invented it. And if you can invent a name, that's the best name you can get. Oh, right. So I go back, and we're sitting down round the table. Look, guys, we've got to get 10 names. Right. Cougar. How about Cougar? Yeah, that's a good name. Yeah, Cougar. Falcon. Yeah, yeah, fantastic. And this is how we're going on. But let me take you back to 1943, during the war.
Yeah.
A bit like COVID. We couldn't go anywhere. Our seaside holidays were sort of gone.
Yeah.
That's it.
The original pandemic.
And our car wouldn't work anyway. So we had to stay at home. And they had these stay-at-home events and things were going on. And I was entered into a sprint race for 60-yard sprint race. I had an advantage. I had a pair of Foster spikes.
You had your spikes, yeah.
There you go. So I won. Great. Fantastic. Won the race. I go up to collect my prize. Okay. What do I get? A dictionary. Yeah. I'm a kid. I'm 8 years old. Where's the football? Where you? What can I do with this? Disgusted. It was a Webster's America's Dictionary as well.
Wow.
A Webster's American Dictionary. Had it been in Oxford English, yes. But the American Dictionary...
Like absolutely no use to me whatsoever in every way.
Yes. The spellings are different.
Yeah.
Quite a few different spellings.
Yeah, like when they spell colour and all of those words are just completely different. They're missing U's everywhere.
They just take the U's out, that's
Yeah.
right. So, yeah, I didn't know at the time, I'm 8, and we're in the middle of a war. Education was scarce, and I got a dictionary. Why an American dictionary? I have no idea. Anyway, fast forward again. We're now in 1960, and we're looking for names. My dictionary, for what it's worth, is sat next to me. And I love the letter R. And everybody said, why R? I have no idea. I just love that R. And so I opened my American dictionary, R. And I'm, out of curiosity, I'm leafing through. And I soon come to R-E, R-E-E-B-O-K. I thought, what's that? It's a small South African gazelle. Gazelle? We're a running company.
Yeah, sprightly little animal.
Yeah. Gazelle. Fantastic. That's us. I put this at the top of the list. And I take my 10 names to the agent there, the patent agent. And I say, look, I'm bringing you 10 names. But to be honest, we want this one.
Yeah, I want that one, yeah.
We want Reebok. We've got to be in love with it. It's got to be our passion. We've got to get behind this because this is going to be our brand. And he said, okay. He put it through the test with the registrar, and it's the only one that came out with really, yeah. It had 2 small little things that he said. One was Reebok, and that was a ladies' underwear company. Okay. So he said, well...
It's not much competition for what you're making. Yeah.
That's it. They won't bother us. And the other one was Railbrook. Railbrook was a name used by Tootles, which were very big manufacturing men's shirts. Railbrook. Okay. He said, but they won't worry, he said, because I'm their patent agent also.
Oh, wow. That was lucky.
So that was okay. So we said, right, we'll register Reebok. The registrar came back with one caveat. He said, if we find that somebody's making shoes out of Reebok skin, there's no way we can stop them. Yeah. And we'll put you in Part B of the register. Well, we're young, we're naive. Part B of a register was that. Would anybody make a shoe out of Reebok skin? Nah. Jeff and I said, that'll never happen. We're Reebok. So we went for Reebok. But say the registrar had made that caveat. 20 years later, he came back and said, we've moved you to the A section of the register.
After 20 years of carrying on as normal.
That's right. Yeah. And he said, because now everybody knows that Reebok is a sports shoe. It's,
you changed the definition basically in the dictionary.
We changed the definition of Reebok sports shoe. And whilst it's still an animal, nobody knows that. So that's how we became Reebok, and we grew it from there.
That's incredible. I bet you somewhere along the line there's a story where somebody did. I mean, you don't know the story, but somebody did try and make a shoe out of Reebok skin 21 years later, and then his lawyer went, "Nah, you see, there's another company that has already taken the name, and you can't make it now. They're in category A." That's like
But
the hidden story.
yeah, there's probably some of that. I think there's a town called Reebok actually
Wow.
in South Africa, because somebody gets on advertising. We see it from now and then. This house which is available in Reebok. So I've never investigated further than
Well,
that.
was there a time where you were you were very financially comfortable and you were like, right, I'm gonna buy a Reebok the town now? Just, I mean, it's the only right thing to do, isn't it?
Well, you think about the different ways you could do this. But I don't think we were ever sort of comfortable whilst we were growing. I think it's like any company. You invest, you reinvest, and in those days, there are a lot of financial institutions now. There are a lot of ways.
A lot of lenders, a lot of stuff that are happening now. Yeah.
Of getting into money. Money is so easy today.
Yeah.
In many ways, but also business is different, because you can borrow money, but the people, they want an exit plan.
Yeah. They want ROIs. They want everything. Yeah.
And we never had an exit plan. We were just sort of doing this seat of our pants. We got to, and it was moving as the business moved. In fact, I do a lot of talking now with MBA students for universities. We've done about 3 or 4 universities now, and they ask me these questions, and I say, "Oh, we did this, we did," and then the guy, the professor who was busy, he looks at me, "You don't do it that way." Well, we did.
Yeah.
Because
it's the only way we knew how.
Yeah. Now they teach you a very structured process on how to operate, run a business, do this, do that, and have your exit plan. But an entrepreneur doesn't do
need
that.
it. Yeah, because that could be a detriment, because you're so used to following a path that's the path most trodden, that
That's
you don't
right.
realize how much time you could save, or things you could learn by going the other way.
Well, you're looking
They're not
outside the
allowing you
box
to fail.
all the time.
Yeah.
I used to do business plans, and it was wonderful doing a business plan. If I was in the business again today, I'd still do a business plan.
Yeah.
Because you do your business plan and think, well, this is how we're going to go. 3 months after that, you look at that business plan and think,
Yeah.
What?
Nothing's happening the way that was. Yeah.
Why did I think of that?
Yeah.
And so it used to amuse me, that just doing the business plan, thinking where we'd be, and we're either miles left, miles right, or just had not moved.
Yeah. At all.
But that's what an entrepreneur does.
Yeah.
So, and when the opportunity comes, you take it.
Yeah. You pounce on it like a gazelle. That's what you
That's right. That's right.
So I'm very interested in, where did the logo come? It was yourself that designed the logo, right?
Yes, I designed the logo. We
Elaborate on that. I want to know.
let me get you to the logo, because we had to change our name. Now we're about 18 months into it.
From Mercury.
Yeah.
It's interesting
from
that
me.
Mercury were actually a footwear brand. I mean, attached to a footwear thing. It's kind of like quite a weird thing, right? That the only other name that you thought of, the first name,
Yes.
actually had something to do with footwear too.
Yes. With the Wing Messenger,
Yeah.
it was I think that's why really it was a good name for us. That the Wing, and the Wing Messenger was great, because he had the torch, Olympic torch.
Yeah.
And he had his wings, and so it was really good for us. But yes, we've been in business 4 years, and our silhouette was 2 stripes and a T-bar. That was the silhouette of the shoe. And it was 4 years, and we got a letter from the Adidas lawyers saying that our 2 stripes and our T-bar infringed their 3 stripes. And would we stop using it?
Yeah.
Well, for 5 minutes, Jeff and I were looking at this thinking, oh my God, what do we do? And we thought, just a minute, Adidas know we're here.
Oh, yeah, that's a whole different thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they asked you as well, as opposed
That's
to
right. Adidas know we're here, and they want us to stop. That's great. What do we do? We'll change our silhouette. And we did. So we changed it to the Vector, which we know now, which is a nice sort of wing stripe. I think we got the idea from from British Airways. British Airways had a sort of
I see
speed
it now.
bird.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had speed. I think they call it Speedbird, and this thing on the side. So, yeah, that's yeah. So we did that, and that happened to be, well, that looks better than 2 straps and a T-bar, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So you think, well, okay, we were forced into changing our name. We've been forced into changing our silhouette, and both of them have turned out better.
than before. Yeah.
Yeah.
They did you a favor.
That's it. That's it. 2 favors there. No, yeah, what is that? Good fortune or luck or what is it? But it gave us something different.
Yeah.
So you then said, well, where did the logo come from? Well, if you can think of the arrow, I sort of put the 2 arrows together and sort of started off. And I thought, that's a bit directional because it just... And we put the R into it. We made it fit into the R.
Yeah.
And you probably need to look through some of the Reebok books
Yeah.
on how we changed our logo over a period of time. So I then made it all the way around, so and then just filled 2 of the arrows in and coloured them.
Yeah.
And we're still doing that today.
Yeah, even the...
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're doing all different colours now, so it can be a self colour or it can be different colours for those 2 arrows. And it turned out very well, but that was fine. But the story will change when we get to America.
Oh, yeah.
Running business in the UK, we missed out on football. Unfortunately, football, Adidas had come in. And for us to get into football would have cost us a lot of money.
Yeah.
Again, much more money than we had. So I had to think, how do we expand our business? Well, first of all, I expanded our business. I decided I'd become a rep. I'd go on the road, call on all the sports shops. I mean, they've nearly all gone now because the big guys left. I call on the sports shops and I would go in there and say, look, I'm Reebok. And they say, who's Reebok? Because nobody knew us at that time. Showing the product. Oh, nice product. That's it. Right. But why do I need Reebok? I've got Adidas. I've got Dunlop. Why do I need Reebok? Yeah, good story. Why do they need Reebok? And that hit me rather sort of, why do they need Reebok? I'm wasting my time traveling around the country, showing my shoes to people. No, I need to find a different answer. And we used to go to athletics meetings and sell at athletics meetings because that was one means of increasing our sales. And I'm thinking, these runners are running past, and those are my customers. I don't need to go to retail. These are my customers. And we were very lucky again because we're looking at athletics, and the 3As in those days, Amateur Athletic Association, they produced a manual. Well, it was a nice big book. Every athletic club in the country.
Oh, wow, there's another favour for you.
Right. They were all affiliated to the 3As, and we had the name and address of every secretary.
Wow.
A sitter.
That was, yeah.
So what did I do? Of course, there was a nice letter to every secretary and offered them 15% off if they got orders, to the club. And if somebody in the club wanted to become an agent, they could have 15%.
Oh, well, wow. So you were putting incentive out there to make everyone work for you without even having to hire them.
There was about 250, 300 clubs in one. And I think we ended up, off that first letter, with 100 agents.
Wow.
And of course, we were direct into the club. These guys were selling them, and our name became, we were the running company.
Wow.
We were the running company, and that increased our image incredibly. So much so that all these retailers have been calling on, picked up the phone and said, "Oh, Mr. Foster, you're selling these direct to athletic clubs, in our town. If you stop doing that, we'll sell your shoes." Oh, so that's very nice of you. Right. So, but look, I'll give you a wholesale price. These guys are getting 15% off. You could give them 15% off, but I'm not going to stop selling. I'll keep that there. And if you want the business, we will list you in our advertising that you sell it. So about 90% of the ones that actually rang me and said, what are you doing this for? They accepted that.
Well.
And that was great. And we grew. We grew to the point where we had people looking at us and saying, "Can we be your distributor?"
And this is the UK still?
And this is the UK, yes. I said, "Yeah, you can be a distributor. That's fine, yes." Okay, so and it was a friend. I'd got to know the guy, Shackleton, Shack, we call him. And his company only made football boots. And we made trainers, track shoes, racing shoes, and all the road shoes. They didn't do that. So it was a good match.
Yeah.
Great. Excellent. But then the man who owned the company, he he died. He was quite old, and I knew him very well, and he became almost a father figure, and it's great. But he died, or he definitely decided to retire. I think he retired first of all, and he put the son-in-law in charge, and the son-in-law knew nothing about nothing about the business.
But he was the son-in-law, so as far as he was concerned, that was enough.
Yeah, but the biggest problem that Shaq, who was head of sales there, they just didn't get on.
Oh wow!
So Shaq left, which was the biggest disaster for that company. Big disaster. And he made so many mistakes that this business just went down. And they went out of business. And I had to rush down there before they went out of business and collect all the shoes that they hadn't sold.
Oh, they already had,
yeah. And they stopped paying me. Yeah, and fortunately, we didn't tell the bank that this had happened, because it was about 80% of all our work. We were doing work in other directions,
Wow.
but 80%. And that was really bad time, because I had to lay off half of the factory. No use making shoes. We didn't have any sales
For the
operation
shoes, yeah.
anymore. So we had to think again, very hard. And we started a direct sales campaign locally to schools and athletes, and with discount. But we were discounting very heavily, but we were still making more money than we were selling to the distributor. And
Wow!
within 3 months, we'd sold all that product, and we got all our workers back, and we were back to making for full production again. But also, one of the things that has happened whilst we were growing the company, I made a lot of friends in the trade, and they knew what had gone on, and so these people, they were giving me orders. Will you make us 200 pairs a week of this? And so our production went up again.
Did you have the means at the time to make all the orders that were coming out, or were you like accepting them and going, okay, we need to work now?
Well, the reason that they were giving us orders is that they were seeing the fact that Reebok we were the running shoe company. So if we made something for them, that would be a bonus. They hadn't expected that Reebok would make another company's shoes, no. But we did, and it got us back again. But this whole thing sort of, again, another distributor finding that our old one had let us down. Within 12 months, I had another distributor. But this time, the first one wanted to do world distribution because they wanted to get to America with football. This time, I just said no, just for UK. And then I could concentrate on America. Because for me, we were a running company, and Foster's had been selling to Yale University. A guy called Frank Ryan, Bob Jack. They were head coaches. Yeah. And Frank Ryan, I think he was the mile. I think he held the mile record for in America at the time. So they had a nice business. But they were selling about 200 pairs a month to America, which was good business for them. But that was dying because Adidas were also going into America. So I thought, we've got to get to America. And this is 1968. And I'm sitting down and I'm reading I think it was Eurosport magazine. And there's an advert in there, nice advert. And it's from the government. And the government's saying, we'd like sports companies to export. Oh, right, fair enough. And they said, we will pay for a stand at the NSGA show. That's the National Sporting Goods of America show in Chicago. We'll pay your return airfare, and we'll pay half of your hotel bills.
Wow!
I had some resistance from the sort of family on the idea of going to America. It cost too much, sort of thing. But when this came up, no resistance. Okay, right, because it was cheaper for me to go and stay at home. Really, you think that was it. And so I went with a friend called Bob Brigham, and he had outdoor stores, and we were making a climbing boot for him. So he thought the idea, well, he might wholesale the climbing boot. So he came with me, and we took a 2-week return ticket. It was cheaper than just going in and out. And to this day, I still wonder, why did we do that? Because the government were paying anyway.
Yeah.
So why did we bother? But we did. And we went to New York. We started off in New York, Times Square, and Bob went to have a look at all the outdoor stores, seeing what they were doing, and I took in all the sports stores to see what they were doing with the footwear. This was good. Went along to Chicago. 4 days there, a lot of people coming up saying, "Oh, nice product. Where do we get them from?" I was in England. England, yeah. Is that New England? No, not New England. England,
Yeah,
across the water.
they don't see past their own states there. Yeah.
That's right. Across the water, Oh, is that near London? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
England's near London.
Yeah. So you can get the idea that we didn't do any sales.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I tell a lie because Bob sold some of his climbing boots. But that was all we got. And now, this is 1968. And I knew we got to get in. We got to get into America. When did I get in? 1979. 11 years later.
Wow.
Took 11 years to get into that market.
And you were trying throughout those whole 11 years?
Absolutely. I had 6 failures. I had 6 people who tried to get in there. There's either lack of money, lack of knowledge about the retail business. We just couldn't get in. And again, in the book, there's a lot of stories about going over this, trying, knocking on the door. But, again, we got lucky. Okay, you might say, after 11 years, you deserve a bit of luck. We stayed around long enough. But late 60s, running started to become a category. People started to go out training, getting out there, doing half marathons, 10Ks, you name it. They started running. It became big. And you think there's 360 million Americans at that time. I think there's near 400 million now. And 10% started to read this magazine and started running. And, they're running. And this magazine, which started off as a single A4 piece of paper, by mid-70s, 1975, this was full colour, glossy, 50 pages, told you everything about athletics, to the point where Bob Anderson, who was the publisher, told everybody which was the best shoe to buy.
Ah.
Yeah, which is the best shoe?
5-star shoes.
Nike, of course.
Yeah.
Nike was just down the road in Oregon. This guy was in Northern California. And it was quite expensive to advertise, but we did advertise. We thought we needed to get in there and get known. And but Bob Anderson said, "Yeah, you got to buy this Nike." Well, as I say, you can imagine there's 36 million runners. We'll say 10% would like to get the number one shoe because they're American. They love that. 3.6 million, so 3.5 million. Phil Knight, Nike, he's importing these things from Japan. How do you turn on that production? He was doing nice, but the demand, well, it takes almost 12 months to wind up to that. After that 12 months, Bob Anderson of Runners World is saying, no, this is the number one running shoe. And I think it's probably a New Balance or something like that. Right. The retail trade were up in arms. They couldn't get the shoe that they wanted because it takes months to get that production running. And then when they got the production running, he changed his mind and said, well, he didn't change his mind, he just designed a new one as a new one. So I think somebody put pressure on Bob Anderson and said, look, you can't do this. This is ruining the trade. Do something different. So he changed the star ratings. 5-star would be the best shoe, and you could have 2 or 3, maybe 4 5-star shoes, and then you go on 3-star, 2-star, 1-star. Okay, wow, opportunity. We were a running company. We were in this business. We knew how to make a 5-star shoe. That was for certain. We could do it. Could we afford it? Well, we had to run around and do something. Gonna have to. So I designed the Aztec. And even today, the sole that is on this one, that's the sole I designed. We're talking about 1978.
And this is for outdoor running, not for competitive...
No, this is training, running, doing the roads, doing a half marathon, your average guy.
Yeah.
Not your top athlete. This is for the average guy who gets out there. And 1978, we tested this out at the Empire Games in Edmonton. We tested 3 shoes. We called it the Gold Range. Aztec would be the trainer shoe. We had Midas, which would be a racing shoe, road racing shoe, and we had Inca, which was a track spike. And that was the Gold Range. And we got a lot of gold at Edmonton. We were great, We had a lot of good runners there. I'm Pasco, Dave Jenkins. We had a lot of winners. Jeff Cakes. We had all these guys in our shoes. So I go to 1979. I'm going to the NSJ show again in February with my Aztec. and the rest of the shoes. And Kmart came along, and because running was getting so popular, and Kmart are a very big distributor in big warehouses and retailers, and they wanted 25,000 pairs. Well, I knew if we really did get a 5-star shoe, we would need help, because they wanted 25,000. That was about half of our annual production in this small factory. But my friend who'd been with the company that went out of business, he went to Barter, and he'd started working with Barter on sports shoes for them, and he got them to agree they would help us. They would make, if we wanted production, they would do that. Fine. But then came out and said, but we want a better price. Well, Barter would be a better price, but they wanted a better price. That was South Korea. What was going?
Wow, that's when
east.
the Asia started really getting involved.
Well, they've been getting involved for a long time. And in the story, it's where I used to go to auctions, because all the shoe industry, they were just closing down. And I used to buy a lot of things at that point from these auctions. But yes, so luckily, not luckily, somebody had come to me because they saw our shoes were really growing in demand. And so the agents for the South Korean company came, and we got something going. They were making samples. You know, what this meant was we were becoming a marketing company more than a shoemaking company, because our small factory would never cope if we got 5 stars. And along came Paul Feynman. He's in the book as well. Like, he's one of my gatekeepers. He was running a company with his brother and his brother-in-law called Boston Camping. I mean, obviously they were in the outdoor sports, and they were selling tents and fishing rods. And Paul comes along, and I could see with Paul, hi Joe, how are you doing? I see you. And he's fed up of doing this. They've been going around the same goldfish bowl for probably 10 years, doing the same production.
Yeah.
And he could see he wanted change, he wanted something more. And they said, look, I'd love to be your agent, Joe, but we really need a 5-star shoe. Paul, come and have a look. Aztec. This is... Paul, he said, well, hello, Joe. He said, yeah, you think that'd be a 5-star shoe.
But it's got to be said in the magazine.
But, you know, until it is a 5-star shoe, we're going to be in trouble. We can't go. You get a 5-star shoe, and I'm your man. This is February. And we're talking about the shoe magazine coming out in August. That's the shoe magazine. And, okay, so I sort of, we're part of company, but I go back to America sometime, I think it was April, May, whatever. Yeah. And I go see Kmart, and, you know, yes, they'll offer 25,000 pairs, but they're such a big company. I thought the problem is that could be our first 25,000 pair and our last 25,000 pair. Because if we don't come up to selling enough shoes in that square meter they gave us, we'll be out of business. I'm just going to stretch over. We'll certainly be out of business. So I go on then to Boston and meet Paul. Paul introduced me to his brother and brother-in-law. Nice business, nice, smallish, but it's a good business. Yeah, this has been nice. And I got on well with Paul. We were talking the same language, and it was great. So I go back, and it's the last week in July, and I phoned Paul. I said, Paul, the Runner's World should be out now. Will you go down to the kiosk, see if you can get one? An hour later, he came back. Joel, yes, I got a magazine. And Aztec, 5 stars.
Wow.
Fantastic. I mean, that was it. That was the hook. That would take us in. He said, but not only that, Inca and Midas also got 5 stars.
No way.
So we arrived on the American market with 3 5-star shoes. Yeah, incredible.
And they were the only ones you put up, right? So as far as everyone was concerned, you only make 5-star shoes.
Well, that's it. So, I mean, that was the entry. Already, there was a demand. We were still talking about at least 3.5 million want to buy a pair of shoes, maybe even more by now. So the demand for that shoe was almost immediate. Fantastic.
Were you a bit nervous about and overwhelmed because you went from 25,000 pairs of shoes having to be made to millions of pairs?
Yeah, but we'd already sort of
set up this.
That's going to be coming from South Korea. Our factory would continue to make locally for the local market, but you know, to get the volume we needed in America, we had to
Wow.
I separated from the factory. Jeff, my brother, he loved the factory. He really did. And, we had an arrangement right in the early days. Okay, probably a couple of years I worked in the factory and did other things as well. But then I moved out, and Jeff was saying, look, I look after the factory. He loved it. You do everything else. Which meant everything else, from bookkeeping to whatever.
He was a lot like your father in the end.
Yes. And so, we didn't fight. We never had a bad word. And I must have done some stupid things when I was going out there trying to build the business, and it didn't work. And then saying we nearly went out of business when our distributor went. But Jeff loved the factory. And here we are now. We're just going into America. And we were only 6 months down the road on starting to get going when he died.
Oh.
Unfortunately, he got cancer, stomach cancer. But one of the things, he was such an athlete. He always wanted to run or cycle, but he always wanted to beat. In running, if you've got 500 people running, there's a group of probably 10 who are all trying to beat each other.
You can spot them from the beginning before the races even started. They're like, he's in full kit. He's ready to go.
So he would always try, but he was always sick after the event, physically sick after, because he tried so hard.
So he was still running with the cancer?
Yeah, well, he must have been.
Yeah.
And he didn't know. He was so fit. And of course, at that point, it was a question, he ran the factory. We'd just gone to America.
Yeah.
And he died. And I mean, that was a tragedy. But that tragedy, it was like, that was a spur. It was sort of saying, well, I'm determined. We're going to get there now. We're going to make this work. So there's a lot of, I had a lot of things to do to secure the factory and keep it going, to put new people in. But the main thing for me was, we're becoming a marketing company now. It was to get Korea going, and to really build on that. And that's when I took a trip. I took this around the world trip. And that's my second thing. Look, I've got to go to America, but I've got to go to Korea first. Can you get me a ticket? And she came back from the agent who we already knew, because I was flying around a lot those days, and said, we've got this ticket. It's around the world in 80 days or less.
Phileas Fogg.
Yeah. First class standby.
Yeah.
First class standby around the world in 80 days. Okay. And it was cheap. It was £600.
Wow.
And this was Pan Am 2. Pan Am 1 continued going around the globe, where it went west. Pan Am 2, which I went on, just went east. And I had a bunch of tickets. And so long as I kept going forward, I didn't need to pay. If I had to make a backtrack, I had to pay for the backtrack. Okay. And I only did one backtrack. But that's the journey which we put down in Tehran. And I think it's 4 days later, they took hostages. Wow. And I'm flying Pan Am. We didn't go on the apron. We just stayed out, and they brought passengers out to us. We didn't know anything like that.
Yeah.
And then I'm in Korea, not in Korea, I'm in Hong Kong, ready to fly out to Korea. And they telephone me, leave a message. President Park has been assassinated. Korea. We've all left Korea. We're in Taiwan. I had to divert to Taiwan to meet up with the guys. Fortunately, although there was martial law in Korea, nothing had happened. There'd been no civil war, which people were thinking might have happened. So this was all part of this ticket, and it was great. I went around the world. I went to Hawaii, and then eventually through to America.
Wow.
And in fact, on that journey, we were supposed to finish off in London, but we missed London because it was foggy. So we went to the next one, which was Paris.
Wow.
So I ended up, I did the world in a bit.
You are lucky. Now, we go back to the beginning of the podcast. I think you are lucky. Yeah. Things happen in your favor. They seem to be, working.
Well, it did work a bit in my favor, but I spent another day sort of trying to get back to England, because everything was fog bound, and then again to London and then back to Manchester. So, but yes, then, I mean, that was one of those trips. And but I did sort of set the things more in motion in Korea.
Yeah.
So that the Americans could go straight to Korea, because there's no use them coming through me and then making a big circle of that. So I arranged with Paul. In fact, after Jibber died, I took on a young guy who was actually working for Barter, Paul Brown, and Barter made a mess of things. You know, that's in the book. But rather than worry about that, but going to Korea, I took on Paul Brown, and he was doing the designing, and I decided, look, we're going to send you to America. So you're over there, and you're going to start taking on the manufacturing job, the design job, and I will concentrate on the rest of the world, keeping everything going.
And you felt comfortable with him kind of taking that over? You weren't a bit apprehensive?
Well, I felt, yeah, he was pretty good. He was okay. He was,
because you're a big brand now. You're not
yeah,
the original Reebok that started, right? So
no,
there's a lot more to lose if somebody gets that stuff wrong.
Well, I knew the Americans had to run the American in America. There's no good me going across. You know, that would have been.
You've had
wrong.
enough holidays by that time.
Well, yeah, I had enough holidays, but I didn't want any part of running the American side of it. I could
do what they knew
I could monitor it, and they had to have permission to get different shoes, and that was okay. You know, and if I sent Paul across, he'd make sure that whatever we were going to do, he would get it right.
Yeah.
You know. In fact, we just won a trophy for making the best shoe. I think it is way back, and it was a Victory G. It was a waterproof shoe. We'd lined it with Gore-Tex, and we got a number one athletic shoe prize for that. And Paul had designed that, so that was pretty good. But you know, we're in America, and we're doing well on running. But there's a guy called Arnold Martinez, and he's down in Los Angeles, and he's a tech rep. He's also a good athlete. I think he actually sort of trained and hoped that he'd get into the Olympic team for America. I think he trialed for them, but he didn't get that. But he was a good tech rep, and the tech rep goes in and talks to the sales staff. Doesn't go selling, talks to the staff, and just tells them the best things about the shoe. Look, it does this, and you've got this cushioning, so that when somebody comes in, they can sell the shoe. And they used to have spiffing then. And what spiffing was is if somebody sold a Reebok shoe, we'd pay them $1.
Oh wow!
That's the people on the floor. Yeah, and that's been going on in America. That's what happens. So Arnold's down there, and his wife is going to aerobic classes and coming on with her mates. And they're full of it. Oh, great! And I'll say, "What's going on?" Well, he said, "What's aerobics?" Well, we're actually exercising to music.
Okay.
Oh, fabulous. And he said, "Can I come down and look what you're doing?" Because they were so full of this. So next time he went down there, and he saw the instructor. She's wearing a pair of sneakers, trainers, if you will. But half of the class are also wearing trainers, the same one. Right, okay. The rest, no shoes. Right. A light bulb moment for Arnold there.
Yeah.
He said, "Wow." He's thinking, why don't we make an aerobic shoe? But not just that. Let's make it a ladies' shoe. So it's on a woman's last, which is narrow. And let's make it out of glove leather, so it's so soft and nice. Because the regular leather that we were using on shoes, like all shoes, it's fairly stiff. You know, it needs some wearing in.
At that time, are there any other brands who were making specifically female shoes and male shoes for training?
No, they're all unisex, really. Yeah. So Arnold thought, right, I'll go and see Paul Feynman. So off he gets, LA to Boston on the red eye, gets there and goes see Paul. Look, Paul, these guys, these girls, this is fantastic. This is going to be big, I'm sure it is. Down in LA, we've got this aerobics going on. Paul said, whoa, Arnold, we're a running company, and we're doing nicely, thank you. Yeah, you know, forget it. If it comes anything, we'll look at it. But Arnold wasn't satisfied with that.
He had the vision.
Yeah, he had the vision. So he went round to the back door.
That's what you need. You need the rebellion.
Yeah. And he had a word with Steve Liggett, who's our production man. Steve, can you get me a couple of 100 pairs? Look, this is what I want. Explained it. Nice cushion, glove leather. He must have been persuasive because he did get his shoes and he went down there. And I didn't know anything about this at the time. It's only when somebody said to me, you know, we've got these shoes in glove leather. And I was saying, what? Glove leather? I knew glove leather. We'd actually used glove leather ourselves on racing shoes, but we used the suede. So we didn't take anything off because glove leather is about 0.8 of a millimeter, which is very thin. and they were using the skin side, so they had to
Even
rub
more
that
of-
to
yeah.
rough it up, and of course it made it weak, very weak. And these shoes, they were just breaking apart. 4 or 5 weeks, and they were just falling apart. And so, it's saying, they're telling me, and I said, "What, you make it out of glove leather? That's just ridiculous. You're going to have to change."
Yeah. Did you see them at that point by any, or you still didn't even know what they looked like?
Well, I did see them at that point because somebody said, we've got the shoe, but we're having a bit of trouble with it. And so we said, "Oh, yeah, you can't do that." So what did they do? They strengthened it with nylon. They put the nylon on,
Okay.
and they put the nylon on. They combined it with nylon. And I'm saying, "Well, look, guys, this is nice, but you've now stopped the leather breathing." Oh, so what do we do?
The
They
holes in the front.
Punched holes in the front,
Yeah.
so it could breathe. And that convinced me that shoemakers are one thing, but marketing really knows what is
It's a whole different animal, yeah.
different animal, because they're the ones that produce the product that people want. We can produce the product. It took about 3 months to get people to recognize that we needed a better leather. So the nearest thing is garment leather, which is thicker and stronger, but soft and still does the job. However, the girls love them. They didn't mind. And we're talking about America. We're talking about Los Angeles. The girls just didn't mind. They'd go out and buy a new pair. They had the money.
Yeah.
It didn't matter. And then we got people in Hollywood. They're buying the shoes. And the women are so much in love with it. They're walking down the street. They were not just putting these on to do aerobics. They were
Making
loving
them everyday
them so much.
shoes.
They were going to work in them, and they were taking the heels in the bag, and when they got to work, they would change. But they loved them, and it just went absolutely. I mean, Jane Fonda, she actually went out and bought a pair,
Wow.
and she used them in her videos,
In the video.
in her fitness videos. So it just exploded.
Yeah, and you know how it is, especially with Americans. Let me just check something. Khalid, were you telling me to put my mic or his mic down because you were doing this? And I think you were talking about mics, and every time you did that, I was taking a drink, and I didn't know if that was exactly what you wanted me to do. I think, can we get your mic down a little bit like that?
Got mine right down.
There we go. Yeah, so you know how it is in America. They kind of follow each other. Like when the cool one finds the next trend, then all of them must have it. And then, and then Jane Fonda's wearing them in the video.
Yes.
So everyone must.
Yes. But it was more than that. We were a small running company, even though we were doing nicely. We were not like Adidas, or we were not like Nike. They were sweaty, male.
Yeah.
Yeah. All of a sudden, the women had a shoe just for them, because we made this on a woman's last. Men couldn't wear them. They were very narrow, and women had something, so they possessed it. We became a woman's company.
Yeah.
And it was all about women at that point, and the men are looking at it in envy. Why can't we?
Because they have their own thing.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, when I grew up until because I'm only a size 42.
Yeah.
So I'm not a man that cares if it's a woman's Reebok. I will get it. If I like the colors, I'm wearing them.
Right. Yeah.
And I always was like, they need to go to 42. Just give me a 42 and then I'll be good. Yeah, I was lucky to have the thin feet.
You wouldn't
Very
have worn,
narrow.
You wouldn't have worn those American shoes.
No, were they really bad?
No. They were really thin, and really,
Yeah, but
really
it depends.
slim.
If I was doing my Jane Fonda workout, then I might have needed them.
You might have done, yeah. But by and large, no, they couldn't be worn by men. But it probably took about 18 months to 2 years before we started making shoes that would fit for men. But what we'd learned from this is that, okay, glove leather wouldn't work because it's too thin. But then we got this nice soft leather. Even the most running shoes, if they were made out of leather, nylon was okay because that was soft. But if they were made out of leather, they were hard, difficult, and
especially long distance running.
Yeah, and you had to break them in.
Yeah.
So this was great. So we changed the industry into this soft leather, nice soft leather, and that was
You changed the
everybody
industry
started.
twice over. You changed the industry by bringing females specific shoes.
Yep.
And that's the thing. The fascinating thing about your story is there's so much records and innovations that keep coming over the decades.
Right.
With Reebok, it's not we made a brand. it's we did that, and then after that we changed that, and then after that, and there's so much accumulation of evolution
Yes.
of the shoe itself.
Yes, and it's obvious. People do ask me like, what were you doing to sort of compete with like Adidas and Nike? And I said, no, we didn't. We looked for white space.
Yeah.
We looked for somewhere else. We did something that was different.
Yeah.
And it's only if you do something. By doing something different, when we started off with aerobics, we were a $9 million company. Not a big company, but nice, 9 million. It was
Pretty big.
Healthy. But a year after, coming into aerobics, we were a $30 million company. Then we went to a $90 million company.
Wow.
Then a $300 million company. And then, because we're now global, a $900 million company. And money, we'd sort of got all right with the money, because going to Korea, we found Stephen Rubin. And Stephen Rubin, he had a sourcing company, so he was sourcing the product. And he came to an arrangement with Paul that, okay, it's part of the company, but he would supply and give a credit line.
Wow.
That's all that Paul needed. Paul didn't need money, he needed a credit line, because once you got the credit line, you got
that's
money.
it. It's sorted,
right. And it very soon got to 20 million, that credit line, and Stephen was a bit nervous at that. Yeah. But then it grew and grew and grew, and once you get to a certain size, it just begins to look after itself.
Yeah, a well-oiled machine that just
that's right.
keeps going.
Because it was growing that fast. The biggest problem we had, though, was 300 million to 900 million. It wasn't money, it was product. How do you get the product to do that? And very lucky for us again, Nike at that time had been doing brilliantly. But, as all companies do, they get to a point where they get to a hiccup and something stopped. They sort of hit a wall. And they had to come out of 3 factories in Korea. And we needed 3 factories in Korea.
That's a white space.
We needed 3 factories in Korea, and we got those 3 factories. And that kept us at the point where we could continue to supply. Because if we couldn't have answered that, we'd have starved the market. And when you starved the market, other people would have come in. But we didn't, and we kept going. So we got to $1 billion in over a period of 5 years, from 9 million to $1 billion. And then we kept going through the 80s, and we were about just short of 4 billion.
Wow.
When I retired. That growth, because by that time we'd become corporate.
It was no longer the 2 brothers in the factory. And
that's right. There was no longer
Boston,
just this entrepreneur challenges and things. And not only was I flying around the world and being picked up by a limousine, going to the best hotels, dining at the best restaurants, and more or less talking the business, but that was it. Apart from the fact that I was hosting a pro celebrity tennis tournament that we put on in Monte Carlo, and this was great. In fact, we had everyone you can think from Hollywood coming to these things, because who turns down an offer to go to Monte Carlo? We had Frank Sinatra. We had Sean Connery and Roger Moore and John Forsyth. The names are endless. Jane Seymour. We had so many people, and I'm thinking, this is great. In fact, I was even invited to the palace, and I went into the palace, and I had an exchange, a glass of wine with Prince Rainier at the time, and chatted a bit about different things that were going on, and so it was living a sort of a different lifestyle. I was living a A-lister's lifestyle, and I thought, well, this won't go on forever, and I really prefer to have a nice, quiet life, or this is no longer a challenge. So whilst it was great, and all the people that were there were great, you meet so many good people. John Forsyth, I don't know if you remember John Forsyth.
Yeah, of course.
He was Blake Carrington, and he was probably a trooper. He was a real trooper. He came to everything.
Wow.
Everything we put on. But this was only the second time. And we're in Monte Carlo in the there's a Salon of Europe, where a big, we put on a big dinner. And it was only the second time that I'd ever seen him. And he came up to me and he said, "Hi, Joe, how you doing?" And I'm looking at him saying, "John,
hold on a minute.
John, just a minute, John, I know you, but how do you remember me?" And he said, "Joe," he said, "that's my job." I said, "Fantastic." And he was quite a scream. He said, "I'm 70 now." He said, "and all of a sudden I've become a heartthrob." He said, I've been working all my life
Yeah,
in
yeah.
films. But he
Yeah.
said, it's taken me till I'm 70
Yeah.
to become a heartthrob.
Wow.
So, that was great. But come 1989, the end of 1989, I thought, this is too corporate. You've got bunches of accountants, bunches of lawyers, lots of people who know much more than I do about how you run a corporate company and keep it going. Time for me to back out and retire. So I did.
Wow. I mean, now that you're talking about, there's two things that I want to talk about. One, I believe it was in 85, since we were talking about Paul. You guys put a time capsule into the ground.
Oh, yes, yes.
Has that been dug up? And what was in it? That's what I want.
It's not been dug up, but we've thought about it for a few times. It's in Bolton, in Lancashire, there, in our original international office.
What is the exact location and coordinates, please?
You're interested. Well,
I told you how much I like history and memorabilia.
yeah. It's now, I think it's the National Health Service took it over, and it's part of their offices, and they're in Bolton. Whereas what used to be the old International Reebok office, and it's onto the steps that go up to the door. I think at the Institute Street, I think it is, if you're interested. But one of these days, and I think maybe when the Adidas ABG, that's the sale that's going on, once that's over, I think there may be some discussions about it. Because it's been there since, I think it was 86.
Yeah. Did you have a plan for how long when you first initially put there? How long you wanted to put it there for?
It's a time capsule.
Yeah. So until somebody finds it.
Until it's worth digging up. I mean, it'll be a pretty good sort of advertising moment of time. That would be good marketing to actually dig it up and unseal it.
Do you remember what was in there? Everything that was in there?
A lot of paperwork. A lot of paperwork. And one of the old Foster's shoes. Yeah. There's one of those in. And there's also one of the Reebok shoes of that time.
Wow.
So there's at least 2 shoes in there, and a lot of paperwork and histories and everything that we were doing at the time. So it's going to be an interesting piece of
very interesting
treasure to dig up at some point.
Wow. The other thing I wanted to know, what was the mood in the Reebok, team and yourself? The 1992 Olympics, you guys had the victory shell suit. The American team, Jordan and the rest of them, covered the Reebok logo with their flag because of the politics they had with sponsorships and stuff. How did you feel about that? Did you have any feelings about it?
Well, I mean, it's a bit like the same as Adidas writing a letter and saying, you've got to change. To me, these things are opportunities, not negatives. Because the fact that they covered them up
made the advertising even better.
Made so much publicity.
Yeah.
It got so much publicity, and it's incredible. And this is what happens. That somebody tries to avoid,
and they end up bringing it.
And they end up now. Everybody has that photograph. Yeah. Everybody has the story. These things are incredible. It's a bit like when with the pump. Yeah. And Dee Brown in this contest where they'd seen who could get the hoops sort of thing. And every time before he took a shot at it, and he won the thing, he just pumped his shoes.
I remember, do you know that I'm not even going to lie to you, probably about when I had my first pair of Reebok pumps, and this is God's honest truth, probably about 45 minutes every day, I'd be going for no reason whatsoever. Just because I could. Do you know what I mean? Right. And I remember just going to school and nobody else had the pumps, and I was like, oh, 1 second, I just need to pump up my tongue a little bit like that. They were amazing, and you had all the different color basketballs. And
that's right. Yeah.
Amazing.
So, I mean, Reebok have got to get back to that.
Yeah.
Somewhere after I retired, and I'm not saying that I retired and that's the reason why things went wrong. No, the pump was more or less, it was only just, the pump was out when I was there. But it was after that, I think the company had grown so rapidly that I think that the people we had knew how to fulfill orders and get, but when you get to the point where you've got to start marketing again, and you've got to start thinking about the next move, maybe we're thinking too much about the investors and shareholders, whereas, thinking about money becomes a negative.
It takes the fun and pureness out of what it originally was, right?
I think what you have to think about is enjoying creating new things. You know, you got to be creative. You've got to have that ambition. You know, it's not just a matter of thinking the bottom line. And today, so many businesses
Our bottom line, yeah.
are bottom line, and how do we get that bottom line? And quite often it means taking quality away.
Yeah.
You know, taking things away rather than adding to. And I think that is really the saddest part about it. That when you become corporate, if you lose that marketing ability, that ability to do some stupid things.
You got to go back to coloring a couple of the arrows. The inner child that wanted to just color in them
right.
two things.
Yeah,
You need to bring it back.
You have to do that. It's the simplest things that really make the difference. Like you say, you know, pumping up those shoes, people remember it. Covering up the Reebok logo, people remember that. You know, if they'd forgotten it and got on with it, it would have just been a moment in time, and hardly anybody would have noticed.
Would have noticed, yeah.
No, but
I mean,
because,
apart from their sponsors, but that was a very selfish thing that they didn't want to. You know, they overcomplicated everything because I'm sure the sponsors, there were rules. Reebok supplied the tracksuits and that was it. You know, it wasn't like they went out and decided, let me just grab a Reebok tracksuit and put it on. It was just part of the thing. So again, ended up doing you a favor. You've had a lot of favors from other people just coming in, right?
Well, I think this is what happens. You know, it's the people that trip over your ideas rather than just stepping back and letting it happen. They just trip over it and they make it better. Yeah, and there's lots of things like that which down the road, you know, they need to happen still, and it will happen. You know, I think Reebok are too entrenched as a company in people's minds. You know, and certainly you had pumps. You know, and anybody I think over 40.
I've had every pair of Reeboks as they came out. The gum sole. When you remember when you made the classics with the thick gum sole that came.
That's right. Yeah.
They were so difficult to get in London in the beginning.
Right.
You know, we'd have to talk to each other as friends and say that shop there, Olympus Sports, they had it.
They had it.
And you got them, and it was just because it was something completely different. The shape was different about that one.
Right.
And then it had the very thick gum sole, and then it went very thin in the middle, and then very thick around the front. Yeah. And it was just, I just remember wearing them and the prestige of having the gum soles. Like when you were walking into school with the gum soles, it was like, yeah, this guy's got gum soles.
He's got it.
He's got the gum soles.
Well, he's got, And they've got to get back to that. You know? They've got to get back to being exciting, different, awkward. Yeah. You know, it still causes attention.
Be rebellious,
Yeah. And today, you know, and I see the business changing quite a lot at retail as well. You know, retail now is not so much going into a store which has hundreds of shoes on the wall. What is going these places, and there's quite a few here, amongst few. I don't know if you know it. It's incredible. You know, you've got a nice wall of shoes there, and there's also a cafe where you can get not just a drink, you can also get food. You know, and he has some clothing there, has his own clothing. There's a barber shop up there, but they do music. Yeah, and it's this mixture now between
it's culture as opposed to just
it's culture,
brand,
and it's community. Yeah, because so many people go
culture and community.
Yeah, it's all part of community, and the culture is changing. So we're not just going to shops, and I think now we have so much online shopping. You know, that's online shopping. If you want entertainment, go to these places which are offering more culture. You can sit down, you can chat.
Yeah, I mean everything's changing. You only have to look at a company like Supreme. Yeah, who. I mean, you can get anything from a hammer with Supreme written on it, right, to a flame gun, to a hat, to clothing or whatever. Right. And it was just that kind of branding that they were so outrageous that they could charge so much for them. And then people, again, were paying thousands of dollars for us, you know, something ridiculous like a padlock. I mean, they were never going to use it for anything, but it's a Supreme padlock, so it means something.
It has a name on it, yes.
You know? Yeah. So why did you sell? And more importantly, to Adidas.
I didn't make that decision.
You didn't?
No, that wasn't my decision. I would not have sold to Adidas. No. I got out earlier, and I got out because you get to a point where you think, this needs other people. And the brand is more important than Joe Foster. You know, and not many people knew that Joe Foster was the founder. You know, they'd have to switch back a bit before they knew that Joe and Jeff Foster founded the company. And unfortunately, my father died, so my brother died. So I'm here now as the sole remaining found. And the reason I wrote the book is that, yes, nobody knew Joe Foster, but somebody seemed to know how Reebok was started, and they seemed to have a name of Joe Foster in there and a photograph. Could have been you, could have been anybody. It certainly wasn't me.
Wow.
And I'm looking at Wikipedia and Google, and I'm saying, no, we didn't start that way. No, we didn't do that. No. Write the book.
Yeah.
So that's
Let
how
me
the
tell
book,
the story how it's supposed to be told.
So I did that, and I told the family history as well. You know, the fact that my grandfather started off, and he's a bit of a hero.
Yeah, and it's
because,
such an integral part of your story.
Absolutely.
That can't be missed out. There's some things you just can't miss out in a story. It's the origin story of Reebok, right?
That's right. It's the family origins, and inside the tongue we used to put a label in there. It's in fact they're bringing it back now. It's the athlete shoe, and it's from a tradition. We started off at 70 years in the early days. Now it's over 100 years. From a tradition of over 100 years, this product is made by this family. A family tradition, so it's a family tradition, and it was a family tradition, and you know we're proud of that. That's why grandfather's in the book, and you know I think he'll be acknowledged as sort of being the founder or the inventor of the spiked running shoe.
Yeah,
you know, and that's incredible.
That is incredible.
So the story has many lessons, and what I'm finding now, universities and like it's London Business School. You know, they're sort of created MBAs. Yeah. But they're now enjoying my story. Yeah. Because my story is not that structured build of a, you know, and I think if people are going to be entrepreneurs, and again what I found that COVID, people have been working from home and doing things separated. They want to do their own thing now. A lot of people want to be entrepreneurs, and to be an entrepreneur, okay, don't take too much notice of the structure. Yeah. Go where you're demanded to go. You know, you've got to drive along. It's not going to be a straight road that an MBA will show you. MBA is brilliant. Don't get me wrong. You know, it gives you things that will come in very handy. But you know that road is not straight, and you've got to go where it will take you.
Yeah, and you've got to be prepared to be one of the wild bunch, one of the wild ones, and take your own journey. Because
why did you do that?
Yeah.
Somebody will say
just because somebody else is doing something and it worked for him. I mean, the factors, just like, for example, essentially, so many factors had to be in place for you to get where you are now. Yes. So many random events for you to be where you are now. So, I mean, a lot of people are not going to experience those random events, those right place, right times. They might experience different ones, similar, but completely come in a different way. Yeah. So it is really about kind of taking the road less trodden and getting on with it and seeing what happens. And if you're passionate enough about what you do, I believe eventually you'll get there. No matter which or how long it takes, eventually you'll get there.
You will. Yeah. You might not get as big as Reebok. I mean, we were pretty
big. It's a pretty big task.
Pretty lucky, pretty exceptional. Yeah. But you know, you can get the satisfaction of really getting a good company, a big company, one that people will look at and remember and say, and they come out and say, oh, you were lucky. Yeah, we were lucky. But you know, we had to work hard at it.
Yeah, of course. So, okay, you've done so much. You've worked so hard. You've done all of the networking and meeting the people and that. It doesn't seem like you're stopping. I mean, you're 86 years old. You're still traveling around, doing all the networking. You don't need to. I mean, I feel like you're in a stage where, you know, you don't have to do this stuff. What makes you want to continue to keep doing this?
Well, you say I don't need to. I think what we did with Reebok is fantastic. And I wrote the book, and now I want people to understand and read the book. And so, for me, again, there is that challenge. Yeah. And that challenge is, let's get this book to a bestseller. Yeah. If we can get it to #1, we'll do that. Yeah, let's get it out there, because not just writing the story because you want to change what's around. You know, you want people to read the book and enjoy the book. And whilst I didn't write it to be an entrepreneur's book, I wrote the story. But I found that so many people find so many messages in there.
Yeah, it's truly fascinating.
For an entrepreneur, they, you know, think he did that, they did that, wow. Yeah. And there's a lot in there of, you know, prepare yourself for the difference, and there will be a difference. Yeah. You know, whatever you think, it will change, but you've got to be ready to do that change. And I think this is what people are picking up from the book. So do I need to do this? In a sense, yes. I think it's that same drive that I needed to get Reebok into America. Yeah, that same drive is now I need to get this book into America, and it is in America, but I need to get it to, as a number one or a bestseller.
Give it three more weeks, you'll get there. I have no shadow of a doubt that it will be. Now, what do you feel about Reebok now? Because obviously you still, pardon me, have an attachment to Reebok, but what is your honest opinion? We might have to cut this out. No, about Reebok. What do you, when you see the name Reebok, when you see the logo, what does that spark in you when you see it?
Well, we got that big that I got used to seeing the shoes and seeing the logo, and it's massive. I probably feel prouder now than I did when I just left the company, because I think back when I was writing the book, it was a matter of, yeah, we did that. How did I do that? What do you do that? No, could you just, okay, I'm going to fly to America now, and I mean, I grew up with so many, as far as Reebok's concerned, I grew up with so many hotel rooms in America. And Glenn Campbell, I grew up with Glenn Campbell. Every time I was in so many times, and I'd switch the television on. Who's on there? Glenn Campbell. He was on almost every time I turned the television on. Yeah. So you remember these things, you remember these names. And yeah, I mean, some of the hotels are great, but I wasn't that fussy, it was, you can go places and you don't see what the problems are. You just go to bed, you're doing it, and you're thinking of what's next? Where's the next move? Where am I going to? So what do I think of Reebok now? Yes, Reebok, I think I'm glad that now that Adidas have admitted that Reebok and Adidas would be better separate. I think that's just a story put out by them, but I think it still would be. I think they're right. What did Adidas do? I don't know what it says. I think this applies to many brands. When Adidas took it over, they changed the letter styling. They changed the side striping. That's the silhouette. Nobody liked it. It didn't work. Unfortunately, I think they got a new marketing man, and he brought it back. He said, no, let's come back. Let's
because that
yes, the drop letter. The drop letter, and that wasn't my idea. That was our marketing man who came up with, why don't we use Mototech Tura? Now, and it was about the same time that Apple were using it, and whether he thought, well, Apple are using this, we'll use it, or whether Apple picked it up. I'm sure they didn't say Reebok are using this, so we'll use it. But who knows? But it works. I've used that Mototech Tura to try and put other names to it, and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work.
It just happens,
But RWBOK comes out spot on.
Yeah.
I think Apple comes out spot on too, but they've changed now from then. I think Apple worked. But it worked. And I think these things are, a lot of people make a company. It wasn't just Joe Foster. That was never Joe Foster. It was always, let's get the right people. Let's build the company. And people who have ideas. When you've got a winning culture, and we had a winning culture, and an inclusive one. It's not me being the boss saying you do this, you don't do. No, it's what can you bring? And people bring, and then they have an ownership. They belong. They feel excited about being part of Reebok. And you don't need to employ people. People come to you. Yeah. And they just join you. Yeah. And that's how your company grows, and it grows through a lot of excitement. We had loads of exciting meetings, incredible meetings. We had a lot of incredible people, and they were a joy. The only problem is that it becomes the most important family that you've got, and you have another family.
Yeah.
And it is
takes its toll.
Trying to get the inclusion
balance
of that family. I mean, in the book, eventually my wife did start traveling with me, and she loved Monte Carlo. That was great, those things were. But she went around the world, and we had this experience in Japan. And I don't know if you've read yet, but the Japanese are great people, but they thought that we would enjoy a show, and the show had striptease girls. And my wife thought this is what we went through all the time. That was the first time I'd ever been invited to a show.
She was like, you forgot to take this part out of the
thing. And I'm like, this doesn't happen. It's so by some fate, it did happen, and she wasn't well pleased. So, But I think she forgave me, not that I was the instigator of it at all. You know, I mean, yeah, I mean the worst thing that the Japanese, when after the show, they brought the girls to our table.
And you're like,
What are you doing, guys? But no, so you do have two families, and I was never at home on my son's birthday because it was always the same time when the NSGA show was on in Chicago. But you know, I mean, I did bring him back an American toy, an American present. So, and I did call him from America when we could, because even the telephone calls were very difficult.
Back then,
yeah, back then, telephone calls were difficult. But you know, these are the things that I don't see you regret, because you know, when you do something and it works fine, if it doesn't work, you got it wrong. That's a lesson, but don't regret it. You know?
Yeah.
You know, those things don't. It's not worth. You waste too much time if you regret.
Yeah, I guess it must have been pretty cool to write the book, because it's kind of like rewatching the movie of your life that you didn't get to see from an outside perspective while you were living it. I mean, we live through every experience, obviously, and we are seeing it. But then when you were rewriting it, it was kind of like, oh, that's how I felt about that situation, or that's how I felt about that time, even though you kind of had the feeling, but it's now you're writing it. It's completely different perspective.
It is, and I must admit you're quite right, because you start to remember things. You know, I'm writing something, and oh, just a minute, I remember. You know, the memory comes back, and I do think, wow, you know, how did you do that? You know, you were so lucky. You know, lucky that those things happened, and there were experiences, and I travel so much on my own for these experiences, and this is what I regret about my wife not traveling with me. Now Julie and I travel together. If you want me, 2 tickets. But then again, she is my external hard drive, and I need her memory more than my own these days. But yes, it is a bit of a problem when you with your family. And whether it means I was not that close to my family, but I think if you have a business and something happens, you've got to work at it.
Especially if you have an empire. I mean, it was a bit more than just a business, wasn't it, by the end?
Well, I mean, to get to the empire, you've got to do things when it's necessary. I think when you are at an empire, you can probably step back a bit. I think getting there, you know, you might lose your way. You might take the wrong turning because you didn't go when you had to go. You had to do something. And you've got to do it. And if the demand is there, you really have to do it. You have to get up there and get on with it. Yes. And family. I mean, sometimes you think it could have been different, but you know, this is life.
I mean,
you take it as it comes.
You can only follow the way the waves are pushing you, right?
Absolutely.
Otherwise, it's going to drown trying to balance everything together, and then lose everything at once. There's no business, there's no family, and then you're ending up doing nothing. Is there anything that you can, if you can give me 3 bits of advice for people, both trying to start up a company and those running it, that you can give to them, what would it be? You can tell them directly to that camera. Well,
I think if you're starting a company, and you've got to be really devoted to it, but the most important thing about it is to have fun, and then have more fun, and ultimately have the most fun in your life that you could ever have. Because if you're not having fun, it won't work. It will not work. And don't listen to too much advice. Follow your own feelings, follow your own intuition, and if you fail, don't worry. You had a go at it. And the worst thing that would have happened is if you never took that opportunity, took the risk. But, you know, you'll pick yourself up and you'll get there. Just keep trying, just keep going. That to me is the most important thing. Fun, keep going, and don't take too much advice. Get on with it.
Right, that's it. I'm pumped. I'm starting Mercury 2 now. I'm going to go right back to the beginning of Reebok, start my own one.
Right.
Joe, it's been an absolute pleasure. I only wish I could have another 3 hours with you, but I'm sure when you come back, then we could do that again if you're not fed up with me. I feel like there's so much more that we could have learned. I'm humbled to be in your presence and to talk with you about all of your experiences. And I stick by the word legend, even though you don't choose to accept it. And yeah, you're welcome back anytime.
AJ, it's been a pleasure. It really has.
So much.
I like telling the story because it gets the story over to more people.
Yeah.
And what I like are these sort of Q&As, people asking a question, because the questions, a lot of them are the same, but a lot different. So it brings out a different sort of answer because it makes me think, well, yes, and this happened and this, because it's 31 years. A lot of things happen that you can't possibly get right into a book, which you can read in 7 hours or less. You know, 31 years. And okay, being interviewed by experts, and they say, I answer questions and say, yeah, we had fun. And we had a lot of fun. And I think one of the questions, or one of the statements, well, you didn't have fun all the time, did you? Did you think that the passage of time has made you think that what you were having was fun? And, and I guess there's a certain element to that. But I think it's also in people's character. It's in your DNA. Your glass is half full. You are energetic. You are optimistic. And I think if that's what you are, we're human beings, and the bad things we forget.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I mean, they always pain, all things like that. Like, it's funny how, you can break an arm and for that half an hour, it's the most excruciating pain you've been through. 2 days later, you can't even remember what it felt like.
That's right.
Do you know what I mean? My wife was telling me, read the book before you get Joe on. And I was like, why? He is the book. Like, I'm literally getting a face-to-face real-life audiobook and some more that's not even in the book. Again, like I said, I would love it if you came back on more, and we can go on in more depth. We've done 2 hours now, and I know for sure Julie wants to throw something at me from up there. It's just like, okay, enough of that. We've got stuff to do.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're already talking to people who want us to come back.
Yeah.
We're already going to come back. We don't have a date on it yet, but we had meetings with Microsoft today, and there's a lot of interest in education. And
Do you see a future back here in Dubai?
Back here in Dubai, yes. And to build this education so people who do get educated will stay here, will develop here instead of leaving. So we're going to come back. Yes.
Yes, we can't wait.
AJ, please invite me.
I'm not going to let anyone sit on that chair anymore. They're going to have to sit on the other one over there. I'm going to put one of those reserved for Joe stickers on it, and they can come back. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoy watching this as much as I enjoyed being here. I'm literally going to just make Joe sign everything that is next to me now, just because of it. And I'd love to do a giveaway for one of these books signed to the viewers and stuff. I feel like I should have bought 10 more to give away, to be honest. But again, thank you so much, and guys, we'll see you next time.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Jabber.